The world is a lot right now. Are you feeling it? We all need new tools to help us walk through the chaos with grace, ease, and compassion for each other and for ourselves. In this podcast, you'll hear from parents, educators, and other experts who can bring perspective to the monumental job of parenting. It's time to level up and be warriors for our kids and our communities. This is the Warrior Parent Podcast. I'm Marci Mitchell.
And I'm Debbie DiManno. As parents, we understand that it really does take a village to raise our kids. We hope that this podcast serves to create and support that community for you. Join us as we discuss and practice our core tools, which are proven mind-body techniques that can be used by anyone to improve your life on a daily basis.
So a quick trigger warning for you for today's episode. We're going to be talking a little bit about suicidality, domestic violence, and childhood trauma. So do take care of yourself as we dive into some of these really important but difficult topics. Welcome back to the Warrior Parent Podcast. We are so grateful that you are joining us today. And today we are talking with our good friend, Nicole Andrews, who is a mom, a business owner, and a believer in love, just like us. She is a warrior parent to two brilliant daughters, ages 16 and 8. She's an active volunteer in her community, and she owns and runs a marketing agency, a ballet studio, and a production studio together with her husband, Steve. And she is a good friend of our nonprofit, Core Experience, and the Warrior Parent Podcast, and to me and to Debbie. So welcome, Nicole. We're so grateful that you're here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure.
Wow. So we've been trying to get Nicole on the show for a little while now.
Busy woman.
Yes, you can tell. Yeah, she is busy being a warrior parent. So we are indebted to you for your time today, and we are really grateful that you're here. Just knowing Nicole, I don't know her or have known her as long as Marci, but even the stories I hear are incredibly powerful. And if there is a standard for the warrior parent, I think that would be Nicole. So Nicole, give us a little bit of your story, a little bit of your background, how you came to be a warrior parent.
Hi. Where do I even start with this?
We got 40 minutes, so
I know. Get ready, buckle up.
Yeah, that's it. That's the story.
I was pretty young when I became a mom. I know that some people become moms even younger than I do, but not just young in age, but I feel like I was a very young in my spiritual journey, young in my life journey. I was 25 when I had my first daughter. And it was an interesting situation. It wasn't planned at all, but it was absolutely by chance and absolutely divine. So I met Addie's dad in community service after I had gotten my DUI, my only DUI of my life.
Oh, wow.
I'll be sober 7 years this summer.
Wow.
So yeah,
congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That's
Thank
a
you
big
so
deal.
much. Yeah. And it's an interesting part of the story just because, there could be and has been, I think, a lot of shame around it, meeting the father of your first child in community service as a young woman, life was very different. Life was pretty wild. And I met him, and a couple months later, I learned that I was having a child. And surprisingly enough, you would think that the circumstances would make it so that I maybe wouldn't want to have a child at that time, but I was on cloud 9. There was not a doubt in my mind that I wanted to have this child, and I was just beyond excited and happy. I remember the feeling. I'm getting emotional thinking about it because I just felt like, I kind of had an idea, but then I, took the test, and I just felt this wave of love rush over me,
Yeah.
And funny enough, about a year prior to me getting pregnant, I had a dream about my daughter, my first daughter, Addie. And it was
Mm,
absolutely Addie, her beautiful smile, her brown skin, her brown hair. And
yeah.
so maybe there was a connection there when I learned I was having her,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
The relationship with her father was very strained. He was abusive physically, emotionally, mentally. I learned this very early on, and I stayed because I think, as a lot of young women do, and also the societal pressure and
Mhm.
probably pressure from him as well, I believed that I needed to stay with the person that I was having a child with, and what would it look like if I didn't? First of all, I wasn't married, so
Yeah.
I needed to stay in that situation, and I was determined to make it work,
Yes.
Yeah.
which
That's
in
that's what
hindsight,
women do. Yes.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
know,
Right.
truly, truly. And gosh, I look back on it now, and I've even gone through, I think, shame of staying for such a long time because I went through so much in that relationship. And I will say that now I know that if I didn't go through all that I went through, I wouldn't be the warrior parent that I
Absolutely.
am now,
Yeah.
I just remember Addie was probably about 3 years old, and my brother had gotten in an almost fatal car accident. And so I had to be in the hospital all day with him. And I couldn't bring Addie at the time, my first daughter, because the swine flu was going around. And I don't know if you
Oh,
remember, but
Jesus.
around that
Yes.
time, they
Mhm.
weren't letting kids in hospitals. So I had to leave her with her dad all day, and I was at the hospital all day long. Anytime I left the house, that was not a good thing. I was accused of whatever the heck,
Yeah.
ridiculous things if I went anywhere other than with him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I just remember getting home that day. My brother was going through a surgery. And, anytime you almost lose someone important to you in your life, a different perspective, your perspective shifts, and you say to yourself, life is short,
Mhm.
and I got home and all hell broke loose, long story short,
Mm.
and I just remember saying to myself, I can't do this anymore,
Yeah.
Yeah.
life is too short for this shit. And
Yeah.
I have a beautiful daughter, and I'm not going to do this anymore. So thankfully, he went upstairs, and I was able to grab Addie and just grab as much as I could. And
Mhm.
my parents weren't far away. And I left really late at night. It was in the middle of the night, got to my parents' house. I woke my dad. I didn't intentionally wake my dad up, but my dad woke up. He heard me come in, and I was just kind of setting up a makeshift bed in the living room. And he looked at me and said, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I said, I can't do this anymore." And he didn't say much, and he just let me and Addie go to sleep. And that was the day that
Mhm.
I left that
Wow.
scary relationship. And I
Wow.
became a single mom.
Yeah.
That's a courageous story for sure. And I'm fairly sure there's a lot of people listening,
Yeah.
women who've been in that situation, who maybe felt like they didn't have the strength. I can tell you, my mother was in that situation. I
Mm.
lived in that situation my whole life,
Mm,
because she didn't have the strength to leave. And I remember growing up as a kid thinking all I ever wanted was for her to leave so that we could get out
Mm.
of this situation.
yeah.
So that's a powerful move on your part,
Yes.
as a
Thank
woman.
you. Yeah.
And the more we talked about this with you earlier, about the trauma and the shame, and the more Marci and I do this work and talk to parents and people of all over the world, what I understand to be true is that there are, and we all have trauma, right? But I think the difference is the people who have the courage to allow trauma to become their treasure and to walk into it. What comes up and what shows up on the other side of that is beautiful, right? It's
It
really
is.
beautiful. But it's just having the courage to be able to do it,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
I would want to say to anyone listening to this who may be in that situation right now is I think we get so hung up on what are people going to think?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, there was a lot of shame for me around, I didn't want to admit that I had gotten myself into this situation and that I had stayed for so long. And
Mhm.
the judgment comes. You have
Yeah.
people come at you and
Oh, for
say,
sure.
why would you, why would you stay there? Why would you do that? Why would you,
Yeah.
like, how did you even get yourself into that situation? The judgment is real.
Oh,
But
Mhm.
I
yeah.
want to say to the people out there listening, let the noise go, because you are doing what you need to do for yourself. It does not matter what anyone else thinks.
Right.
And especially if you have a child, you are paving the way for a completely different life for them, you know?
Yes.
So remember that you are the keeper and the creator of your experience, and F what everybody else thinks. Get out.
Yeah.
Get out if you can, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And you're the one, it's your life. Like people can have all their opinions and blah 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 about it, but you're the one who's living it. And again, you're setting that up for your child, and you're demonstrating to your child that you can prioritize you and them, and that's okay. And then also that there's life on the other side. Like that's another message, I think, because you have a beautiful life now. And yes, you're busy, you've got multiple businesses, but like you said, sober, after, going through a lot, you take the steps, and then you got another daughter, and you have this beautiful life because you were strong enough to take that leap of faith and say enough of this without a plan. It wasn't like, oh, as soon as I get this, I can do it. It was just like, oh, enough. Let me walk out in faith and know that I'm gonna
Yeah.
this is not for me.
Right. And
Yeah.
and it's generational as well. You know,
Oh,
Yes.
I have family members that have experienced the exact same thing. And the fact that I chose to get out, number one, and
Yeah.
like you're saying, Debbie, taking it and making it your treasure and knowing
Yeah.
that, that there was gold in there. There was absolute gold in
Mhm.
there. And the fact that, I knew that the trauma that I had experienced was causing issues in my life, and it led me to want more for myself, which ultimately, allows your children to have more and have a better experience and go through the things that they're going to go through in a do I say easier fashion?
Healthier, maybe.
A
Healthier.
healthier, a
Yeah.
healthier, a
More
healthier,
positive.
more
Yeah.
positive.
And
Yeah.
and breaking those generational chains of trauma, and then
Mhm.
something new moving forward.
Something new moving forward, because
Yeah.
that's what we want, right? We want better. We
Absolutely.
want better for our children, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you speak about the generations. It seems like this topic comes up every single conversation
It
that
does.
we have.
It
And
does.
so, what we also want to say is, there's no blame, right?
Right.
Everyone is just doing the best we can. But I think
Yes.
through this evolvement of human beings, I think, and to especially watch the evolvement of women in my lifetime,
Yes.
and the evolvement of my mother,
Mm,
right, doing the very best she could.
mhm.
There is no blame in that whatsoever.
Right.
But whatever I experienced was my own trauma, and that was my own path, and the work that I had to do to get to this point.
Yep.
Yes.
So yeah, a little bit late to the game. I wish I could have done it at your stage. but,
Well,
but but it all happens as part of this
Yeah.
process we call
it
life,
does. It
right?
does. I'm not going to say, let me tell you, first and foremost, my journey did not, I will not say, I mean, I guess you could say the spiritual journey began then, but my true healing journey didn't happen until I got sober. And
Yeah.
that wasn't until much, much later,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I didn't realize, well, maybe I did. No, I didn't consciously realize how much of an effect and how that was helping me hold on to pain instead of helping me heal the pain that
Mm.
needed to be healed.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
wasn't until much later that I had my awakening process, so to speak. I think,
Yeah.
it was slowly starting to happen as the years went
Yeah.
by and I got out of that relationship. There was definitely a shift in my life, and things,
Yes.
I started to make better choices and things got better.
Yeah.
but the real deep healing began once I let the alcohol go, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. It seems like coming up a lot to me lately is just this, that it does take time, that you get to take time, you get to have the time and space. And, as my son says, time is a construct, and that is true. It's not,
Yeah.
so whatever, what's long, what's short. But I had a minister and a teacher many years ago who used to say that growth is gradual, sequential, and cumulative. So it takes time. It happens in order. Like, that's the sequential part. So sometimes you got to learn this before you can learn this. So it might be, hey, I don't deserve this abuse, was step one. And then next was, hey, I'm hurting myself with alcohol, like step two. So it's sequential, and then cumulative, in that it's building and it's building and it's building. And sometimes we have those tipping points, where we have like a whoa, like big aha. But it's always building as we're doing the work.
Yeah.
So
It's a constant. It's still
Yeah.
going.
it's still, oh yeah.
You
And
have
when you're
stuff that
58, it's
circles
still
back.
going. And
Yes.
hopefully when you're 85 and when you're 97, like it's like, that's why we're here, right? We don't get to a point where we're like, oh, good, I'm done. Now I
Right.
can just like
Yeah.
watch TV or I don't know.
Wear the warrior parent crown. Yeah.
Yes, I am crowned. I am done. And then I always joke about this: when you become completely enlightened, you just poof, and you're just gone. You're on
I
to
know.
whatever's next, because
Right,
there's no need to
exactly.
be
You're
here
done.
anymore.
You're done in this body.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've leveled up,
Yeah.
and now I'm on to whatever's next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're describing, what Marci and I have been learning a lot about, and that is the term conscious parent, right? So that begins with the journey you just spoke of, which is, first of all, to create the awareness for yourself. We always say it's an inside job, that you have done or continue to do the work. But then to tell us, more about that, how that shows up in your parenting every
For
day.
sure. For
Being that
sure.
you have a teenager, a 16-year-old, and an 8-year-old, so those are very different jobs, essentially.
Very
right?
different jobs.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's wild. So this makes me think about another story. And I feel like my conscious parenting journey began when Addie was in pre-kindergarten. And, it was very light at that time. And I do feel that I have very interesting perspectives because I was in a very different relationship with my first child. Parenting, the culture was that, you were not a good parent unless you had a well-behaved child, and a well-behaved child didn't cause any trouble, was quiet in the corner, listened to everything that you said, was not crying, did not fuss, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they had to be little drones that were perfect, and the parenting style that I adopted came from her father, and it was ingrained in me because I was in fear that if I did it any differently, I would get in trouble. Let's just put it that way. And so, even to say that I was forced to make Addie cry it out, so to speak, I wasn't allowed to comfort her as an infant, as a baby, when she was crying. And so that was hard. So even into her early years in school, I still had that same, I followed that same parenting method, I guess, because I wasn't conscious enough yet to change it, and I didn't know any better.
That's kind of what society was telling you too. It wasn't just, that was what,
That
like,
pressure is still
the
there.
kid versus, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I was early in my relationship with my husband, Steve, now as well. And Addie was in pre-K, and she was having little outbursts of anger at other students. And I always look at her teacher, Mrs. Ratting, as one of my guides and angels that showed up, because she spoke to me about connection parenting. And I think the author's name is Pam Theo, let me look up the book really quick. I have it right here. It's Connection Parenting. Pam Leo, not Theo, Pam Leo. Yeah.
Mm.
Beautiful book. Essentially, Mrs. Radding told me about the love cup. And if your child's love cup is empty, what you'll find is that they will be lashing out in different ways, whether it's anger or, misbehaving in class, etc. And if their love cup is full, then, they're overflowing with love and they're going to exude and express positivity. And how do you fill the love cup? By connecting with them, by giving them love, by creating an experience of, instead of using fear tactics, if you don't
Yes.
do this or if you do this, XYZ will happen.
If then, yes.
Yeah, you'll get punished. We'll do this. You're going on timeout. You're
Right.
going to get grounded. We'll take this away. It's a connection style parenting where you don't have to use those methods to get your child to do what you need them to
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
And so that was my first glimpse of that conscious parenting. And it was such a gift to me for her to just tell me about, it was just telling me about the love cup. And
Wow.
since that day, it just changed my whole perspective. I will also say it's never a perfect journey. We slip
No.
still,
Oh,
we
of
always
course.
slip and we
Yes.
have to catch ourselves and say, wait a second,
Yeah.
am I coming from a place of love or am I coming from a place of, am I hurting today? And then I'm taking it out on them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
That darn human factor.
that darn human factor, it always sneaks back in,
Yeah.
it always sneaks back in. So,
What a gift for you. And shout out to
whew,
Mrs. Radding,
I
because
know
isn't
she,
that brilliant? Because we
yeah.
don't know that if we haven't learned it. And so for someone to bring it to you and say, hey, here's a whole nother way to look at it. And, and this is what we've been learning about this conscious parenting, gentle parenting, connected parenting, like all the words, the idea that instead of just trying to smash down the kid into a box and have them show up a certain way, that we look and say, hey, what's going on right now?
Mhm.
And is your love cup empty? What do you need? How can I
You need,
help? Yeah, how can I help to fill it for you and show you how to fill it yourself? Like, and I'm supposed to be
mhm,
teaching you. It's just such a paradigm shift. And now you're going to have this more centered, conscious person as they grow up and become an adult who understands that, who knows that they can check in and say, oh, I need to feed myself, or I need a nap, or I need a friend, I need to talk to someone, I need to go on vacation, whatever. My cup is getting low. We know
mhm.
you can't pour from an empty cup. So in order to show up as your best, you got to fill that cup, put on the
Yeah,
mask, whatever. And
yeah.
teaching your kids that from the beginning rather than just be quiet, be good, be this, be that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. We don't allow
It's
them to be themselves when
yeah.
they have to fit into these boxes of, it drives
Yeah.
me wild sometimes. It really does.
Well, and
It's
that I just want to say
yeah.
quickly, so to have learned that so early, I think not
Yeah.
everyone understands that, what's going on with the brain in those years
Yes,
between
Mhm.
exactly.
one
Yeah.
and seven. So you are creating these
Yes.
beautiful neural pathways in your
Mhm.
having known that. I mean,
Yeah.
most of us didn't get that at all.
Yeah.
And so now we're as adults trying to do the rewire, and that's a lot
It's
of work.
hard. Yeah.
It's
And
hard.
that's what
You're
makes
right.
it
That's a gift.
revolutionary, because
Yes.
now people are learning that, kids are learning that in this time when their brains are developing the most, that first 7 years, they're learning something that's going to change the rest of their life.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
fact that there's parents showing up doing this now, like you're changing the world literally. You're making this huge shift so that the adults that are going to proceed from this are going to be more centered, more gentle, more loving, more compassionate, more empathetic,
Mhm.
all the things that will make this a better world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's huge. It's huge. And I'm so excited about it.
I am too. I love that I can have these conversations with both of my kids. And,
Yeah.
I think about Addie, my eldest, has definitely gone through some mental health struggles, and
Mhm.
we were able to do that together. But you know what the beauty of it to me was that she could come to us and
Yeah.
tell us,
Yes.
And
Yes.
she sought out help herself. She went to a school counselor and said, "Okay, I don't know how to say this to my parents, and I need help to figure
Wow.
this out." And so along
Wow.
with the school counselor, we learned what we needed to learn, and we went through a whole process. And now at 16, if Addie is if her cup is not full, she has the ability to say, "Hey mom, hey dad, I need help right now, something's not right and I got to
Wow.
figure this out." And what a gift, because
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. I love that.
and these teenage years are the toughest. We're talking about ninth grade, 10th grade in high school,
Yeah.
where you're dealing with peer pressure and peer judgment, and your ego is so strong. All you're thinking about when you get to school is, gosh, what are people thinking about me? It's
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
like this
Exactly.
this this whole journey for her, and we get to talk about it. And
Yeah.
that just by itself is
Yes.
so beautiful to
It's
me.
everything.
So
Well,
beautiful to
I
me.
think you just nailed it. So, as you know, Marcy and I have all these tools that we teach kids, right, to deal with just those things.
Yeah.
And so much of what's happened is kids have gone so far
Mm.
to the other side, the darkness, the depression, the anxiety, the God forbid the suicide, right? They've gotten there because they don't have an outlet, right? They don't
Mhm.
have a place to go. They don't
Right.
have that parent. They don't have the infrastructure built in. They don't have any tools at
Mhm.
all,
Mhm.
right? And so now they're trying to recover from that. Maybe
Mhm.
it shows up in their adult life, maybe it's in college, wherever it shows up. But
Mhm.
now we have a society, right, that's full of this.
Yes.
Meanwhile, we could have nipped it in the bud really early on if the parents had just had the wherewithal, or the
And
capacity to be
their
able to do
personal
this.
tools too, to be able
Yes,
to
Their
fix
right?
own.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. We think about how many adults are walking around who don't have the ability to emotionally
Yes.
regulate, or,
Yes.
Yep.
the awareness of what's going on inside them. They're
Yeah.
they're walking the earth completely unconscious, just moving and acting and not
And
thinking.
reacting,
Yeah, and
reactionary, like
reacting.
they're in
Yep.
that
Yep.
reaction all the time. Oh my God, this, oh my God,
Yep.
that. Yeah, that's
Yep.
a rough place to be. That is
It
a rough
is.
way to live your life.
It is. My goodness.
And I know you and Steve do use tools with the kids, and you have practices. So talk a little bit about that, because I think that's lovely.
Well, breathing is a big one. Breathing is a big
Mhm.
one for us at home.
Imagine that.
I know,
Mhm.
just
That sounds,
just
sounds so
breathing,
silly.
just
Kind of
breath
important.
work, Yeah, yeah. No, but anytime there's a rough moment, it's all right, let's stop for a second and take a deep breath, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Meditation is another one. And it's really funny because I feel like with teenagers, sometimes you can get the pushback, because if you're trying to force them to do
Oh, yeah.
anything, they're
Yeah.
like rolling their eyes, doing that kind of thing. But regardless of that, Addie still appreciates it. And it is her
Yes.
default to get quiet for herself. You know what
Mm,
I mean? Like, if she
yeah.
knows she needs to do that, that's still her default. So
I
Yeah.
it's
love it.
it's in there, even if there's a little bit
That's
of
it.
resistance
Yeah.
You plant
sometimes,
seeds, and you're sometimes it's
Yes.
amazing where they start to sprout. You're like, "Oh, I didn't think that seed landed, but yes, it
Yes,
did."
yes. And for Charlotte is very receptive to these things. She
Yeah.
requests meditation sometimes. So,
Yay.
you know,
Wow.
and
Wow.
kind of moving on to it, in the same vein, I feel like being able to let go of that worry of what people think of your parenting and how your child behaves.
Yeah.
I have allowed Charlotte to be who she is, and
Mhm.
I still do. And it
Mm.
creeps back in sometimes. It's like, oh gosh, what are we have to get Charlotte to behave, but
Mhm.
because I push that aside, she has the ability she knows what she needs in each moment. So if she
yeah.
needs to move, she gets up and moves. And that's her thing.
Yeah.
That's her energy release, whether it's dancing or,
Cartwheels, lots of
cartwheels,
cartwheels.
she's doing her gymnastics, like
Yeah.
giving her the freedom. We think that kids, if we want to go into the neurodivergent area, we think that kids are bad kids if they're getting up and having to move every 10 minutes, or,
Yeah.
this is a necessity for some
Yeah.
children.
And it's self-care when
And
they do
it's
it.
so,
Yes.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so allowing your child to be who they are without squashing that because you're worried about what the world thinks of your parenting and their behavior
Yes.
is such a huge, and has been such a huge thing on my parenting journey, and just observing my kids growing up. Another thing that comes to mind for me that's really, really huge, we're talking about children who have gone into darker areas, and even in our area, we've lost kids to
Of course.
depression
Yeah.
very recently.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I observed about that, we have, sorry, getting emotional. It's a big deal. There's a loneliness epidemic with our young people, and not just the teens, but the young ones as well.
Yeah.
We, as humans, we are built to connect. Yes, we need time to ourselves, but we are built to connect. And I feel like there is less connection than ever, because the connection that we have on social media is not the same as when you get to be in person and talking to someone, hugging someone, just having having relationships with people is not the same. And what I was able to observe about someone that we lost recently was that they were very lonely, and they did not have someone there for them when they needed them,
Yeah.
And it was even apparent that the parents weren't there, and not that they were necessarily even conscious of this, but it brings up the fact that our relationship with our children can be very superficial and transactional, and we take on this parent role and are constantly in this parent role, right? As a parent, our main job is to keep our children safe. We have to house them, give them clothing, give them food, and make sure that they don't hurt themselves. And this is especially true when they're little, right?
Yeah.
As they get older, it becomes more complicated because it's easier for them to keep themselves safe, so to speak. There are different challenges, of course, but where we tend to miss the mark is because all we do is keep that parent role. We're constantly telling them what they need to be doing, do your homework, do your chores, don't do this, do this. If we're constantly in that role, there's never an opportunity for true connection with your kid, with your child, and this has just been popping up for me so much lately. All they want from us is our presence.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
our
Yes.
presence, nothing more. Let go of what our next stop is, what our next appointment is, getting us to school. Let go of that and just be with them and allow them to be, I feel like I observe this so much in my own household, and I can feel the desire for just allowing them to just be who they are and not worrying about what they need to be or what they need to be doing, and that presence allows them to feel this connection.
Yeah.
Because that's our foundation. Is it not? Our
Yes, it
foundation
is.
as humans and as we grow, if we don't have that connection, we constantly feel we grow up feeling separated. We feel separate from others. And when we feel
Yeah.
separate from others, we're in pain and we don't have that
Well,
true love and connection,
and
you know?
Yeah.
you speak about that connection to others. I would take it a step further and say we are disconnected from ourselves. Right?
Yeah.
If we cannot connect to ourselves, our soul, if you want to go there,
Hmm.
whatever, if you can't do that, it will be impossible for you to do that. So for you to say that, it's clear that you are very deeply connected to yourself. And right?
Yeah.
And so if parents listening cannot do that single most important thing, that would be a pretty difficult concept for them to get their head
Yeah.
around.
You are
Agree?
so,
Okay.
so right.
Yeah.
Right. So if they themselves have not began that healing journey,
Yeah.
and when I say the healing journey, somebody might not even have the realization that they need to be on a healing journey. They're like, there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with me,
I
you
got
know?
this. Yeah, I got it all together. Look at me. Look at my car. Look at
Yeah.
my house. Look at my
Right.
this, look at that. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But the minute you start that healing journey, you're so, so right. That connection with
Yeah.
yourself, that level of consciousness and awareness that you have
Yeah.
opens this up for your own family, for your
Yeah.
own
Yeah.
children
Yeah.
to have that connection.
And
And
I
I,
got to say, listening to you give that piece of advice as a 58-year-old woman whose kids are, one's about to be 27, one's going to be 29 this year, that really resonated. Because if I could go back and do one thing, I would be more present. I would
Mm,
not, because I'm someone who's very action driven, very like I take care of this, take care of that, take care of that. And I know that I missed some precious moments with my
mm,
kids. And if I could go back, I would absolutely do that now. And it's never too late. So I can still have those connections, and I can never get back all those years when they were in my home, and I was there and I was distracted by all the stuff that needed to be done and the things that I thought I needed to be doing.
right.
And again, I know I did the best I could with what I had, but when I hear you talk about it, it's so inspiring. And yeah, don't end up later realizing it and having regret that you lost that. Like if you're in those years now and you still have your kids in your house, really take that to heart, because that is
yeah,
such a brilliant piece of advice.
Yeah.
it is. And I think, when I watch Nicole, she does all this outreach for kids, and she
Yeah.
has this thing now, this teen night where
Yes.
she's bringing kids in. That is about connection. And I feel like that is another gift you're giving the planet, because
Yeah.
if the parents are unable, and some just this will not be their lifetime for doing that, if you have an opportunity to teach the kids about connection and how important that is, then they can save a friend of their own
Yeah.
who may be thinking about suicide or having a difficult time, right? Because they're aware, they're witness to it. They can participate in helping that other child, right? So
Yeah.
community, connection, love, all the things Nicole
Yeah.
represents, and we are out of time.
Beautiful.
I hate to say, like, we could go on for days, and we might have to have Nicole back because this was so
Yeah.
much fun, and we love her so much.
Yeah.
Nicole,
And
I
boy, you
am
dropped some truth bombs and
yes.
some tools for parenting that are so elemental, so important. So I hope, I think I'm so grateful for that, for people who heard that and can take it into their lives.
Thank you guys.
Um,
You're
yeah, and, I do want you to share, so the multiple businesses. So some of the stuff like your marketing, which this is the marketing company that started the Warrior Parent Podcast. They guided us, they helped us get there. They're fantastic. So share how to find you on that and any of these other, for people local to the Sacramento area, fantastic ballet studio for kids from little up and above. Share some of that information.
You got it. So shereignscreative.com. You can always visit us there. You can find us on all social media platforms as well if you're in need of any marketing services. It's more of a tailored situation with our marketing agency. So, it's not very cookie cutter. It's based on the business's need. And I would say that it's very exciting when local businesses come to us because we started in the digital world. And so we work with people all over the world, but it's even more fun when you get to work with people in person and locally. So feel free to reach out to us for that. Small businesses, go use small local businesses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Love that. And
Yeah.
then our California Ballet Conservatory Dance Studio, we offer all ages, hip hop, jazz, contemporary ballet, and even some conditioning classes. And it's a really fun place to be. My 8-year-old is a dancer now. It all kind of just fell into place.
Yeah.
So she absolutely loves everything there. We have some summer camps coming up for kiddos of all different ages. We're also, if you notice, the name is conservatory. So if you are looking to go career in the dance world and you're looking for some very professional Vaganova style ballet training, then this would be the place to come as well. We have a ballet instructor, director who is just incredible, and people are coming from far places to get her instruction.
Wow.
So yeah, reach out for that for sure.
Awesome.
CaliforniaBalletConservatory.com. Yeah.
And what about your
Beautiful.
social media? Because you do a lot of love-based, heart-based parenting and just
Yeah.
showing up for yourself kind of
Yeah. I,
posting. So
different places. I'm on Facebook. Nicole Andrews is my Facebook page. Nicole Lee Heals is my Instagram. I'm on there intermittently these days because, the shift in social media, we need it, right? As businesses, we need our social media for sure. But I think I got a little burnt out in the social media world, and the focus, that whole thing about being more present in your own life and in your family's lives. It was just taking up too much time.
yeah.
So
We're thinking
taking
podcast is the way of the world. Let's
yeah.
everybody gets on a podcast.
Yes, it's a very nice way to do that. So yeah, but feel free to come and hang out with me on social. I do for sure
There's some great
intermittently
content
share
there.
some things
Yeah.
there. So
Thank you,
thank you,
Nicole.
ladies, so
Nicole.
much.
Thank
It's
you.
been such a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you.
And now for your core mental health break. This is your opportunity to take a moment to support your mental wellness, your peace of mind, your ease and grace. Our Core Tools platform consists of a number of proven tools and techniques that are designed to reduce stress, anxiety, and overwhelm in spite of what's going on in your world. We suggest you schedule a mental health break every day. It doesn't have to be elaborate or time-consuming. You can set your alarm and remind yourself to take a deep breath. You deserve it, and it matters. Today, we're going to try a little taste of bilateral tapping. So begin by pressing your arms over your chest so that each hand is on the opposite shoulder. And then just tap one side and then the other. Tap on the right, tap on the left. Easily, gently, going back and forth. Breathe deeply. If you like, you can allow your eyes to close and just stay in this tapping rhythm for as long as feels good to you. This will help to calm your nervous system and bring you to a place of center, and you can use it any time that you're feeling a little anxious or unsure about something. For a more in-depth version of bilateral tapping, you can check out our Core Tools platform or app. Thank you for pausing for yourself today. Your mental health is important, and you deserve peace, calm, and ease in your life every day. So please choose to receive it. It is always available right at your center. your heart, your core. Stay well, friends.
Thank you for listening to the Warrior Parent Podcast. You can find us at coreexperience.org. Make sure you join us next week for another informative conversation to help you and your family show up mindfully, purposefully, and joyfully with each other and in your community.
Thanks to Samuel Hale, LLC, for sponsoring this podcast. Technical and marketing support comes from Inspire Your Brand. Our podcast editor is Justin Beeden. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, producers, or financial supporters. I'm Debbie DiManno.
And I'm Marci Mitchell. The Warrior Parent Podcast is a production of Cour Experience. If you resonate with the idea of creating a community to help support kids and families, won't you join us by following the podcast and sharing this episode? You can even write a review. It truly does take a village, and we appreciate you.